There are moments when you fall down and you think, oh, this is it, oh shit, that's it. But believe it or not, that tends to lead to the next opportunity. I got a phone call from the manager. There had been a fire up the stairs in a flat that we also own. Of course, the fire brigade had been called out, the restaurant was evacuated. The amount of water and debris that came down, we went from we'll be open tomorrow night to we don't think we'll be open for a while. So at that dark moment, it was like, oh, it was the end of the world. I just moved house. I only had one restaurant, one main income stream. It was like the end of the world. That's what put us on the road to where we are today. That fire was the first moment. What is it that keeps us going? Well, we're passionate for business. It's a professional sport to us and we enjoy going to work. We're at our element. As much as, we like to have a good time and have trips and go on holiday and that bit, we're almost out of our comfort zone when we do that. It's not us. We enjoy the game of being in business.
If you have been enjoying listening to the stories of entrepreneurs across Edinburgh, then why not subscribe? If you're on YouTube, you can hit the red button down below and hit the bell to get notifications. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, then subscribe to the podcast. We hope you enjoy the show.
Tony, fantastic to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon.
To start, can you just give us, I think a lot of folk will kind of maybe know who you are, but just give us a summary of, your business. What do you do? Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks very much for inviting me here. It's good to come and chat on a Friday afternoon. Who am I? Well, I'm best known for running restaurants. The Vittoria Group's obviously been established since 1970. My late father, who started the business in 1970. I took over the original Vittoria in Brunswick Street in 93. Worked away, got married to my darling wife Angela. Worked hard during the 90s, tweaked it, and we invested small amounts of capital in it, and it became a better business because it had already been established 25 years already when I took it over, so it was already a mature business. And we then built it up. We expanded in 2001 onto the opposite corner, which is the Brunswick Road corner, opposite McDonald Road. That became the Big Vittoria, and 20 years ago this month. We then, a couple of years after that, we bought the old Caprice restaurant in Leith Walk, which is a well-known pizza place of the 70s and 80s. That was 2005 by the time we got it open. 2007, we then charged up to the city centre. George IV Bridge opened, the Vittoria, 2007, which was exciting because we were in the city centre. It was like a different world, things with different clientele completely, even though we managed to move from Leith Walk a lot of Edinburgh people as well, who found it more local than coming down Leith Walk. 2009, Taste of Italy opened on the corner of Baxter's Place, next to the Playhouse. 2012, we then did, 2010, the year after Taste, we did Divino in Merchant Street, the wine bar. In the middle, of course, the delivery thing, technology, internet, we started doing home deliveries at Favorita in Leith Walk. We opened a variety of shops with a business partner who ran the business for us. The Favorita business, we did Leith Walk, Morningside, Blackhall, Glasgow, Portobello. And at the time, these were great things. The Edinburgh people will remember all the Fiat 500s going round town, We did that. That's sort of ceased now. We don't really come out of that world now because the delivery business in general has changed. Your Deliveroo's, Just Eat, it's good to know sometimes you need to rein back. So we're out of that game, almost. We only have one now in Leith Walk, La Favorita Delivery. And then in 2018, we opened our biggest site to date, which was 11,000 square feet in Victoria Street, which is called Bertie's, which was like our take on proper fish and chips. So a restaurant that's focus was good quality fish and chips. And that's what we did, And then along came the pandemic, and we closed, and I reset a few things. And then I decided it was time for me to take a back seat. I almost left the business to a degree, and my sons have taken over. So they now run the whole hospitality side of the business. And I'm not even employed by them. I just answer any questions that I get asked. like an advisor, father. You know, I just help them out. You know, if I'm needed to put my hands onto something, like sit on a site, they ask me to come down. If not, I won't go down. Because I think I've done my gig, you know. I really started working full-time in restaurants when I was 12, 13. I'm 55 this summer. So it's been a long paper round.
A long shift, eh?
A long shift, you know, and because I've been very lucky that my two sons are in the business, and I can see they're in it for the right reasons. They work hard, they want to develop and maintain and keep growing. I thought it was right for them because my success came from my father making a decision when I was only 22, 23 to almost just give me the keys and step aside. And even though my father was there almost to the very end, I called the shots and made the decisions. And I think that having that ability young meant that I had the energy, young enough to make mistakes and recover and get on with it, you know, and that's what I did. So I thought it was a good idea that the boys stepped in. So they now run the hospitality side of the business since 2020. They're solely responsible. And I sort of, if there's any project management for refits or building trades and property maintenance, I get involved in the restaurants there because I've got experience with our suppliers, and I look after, on the other side of our business is obviously residential, commercial investment. I sort of look after that as completely, you know. So that's my sort of day job, and my afternoon and night job is with the hospitality side. So yeah, the Vittoria Group is a bit of lots of things, but we're well known for serving lots of people daily across Edinburgh. Pizza, pasta, good wine, Prosecco, Moretti lager, and now fish and chips. That's what we're known for, I reckon. That's what we are. Of course, the Crolla family in Edinburgh is well known for that, for hospitality and food in general. So I occasionally get credit for things that I haven't done, which I maybe slip into the conversation just to let you know that wasn't me, but thank you. Anyway, I'll pass on the compliments. But you know, the Crolla family is synonymous, beginning with Valvone and Crolla in Elmroe. You know, pioneers.
Perfect. Amazing. And so go back and tell us the kind of the story then, because you know we've kind of spoken before. I know there's lots of stories along the way as well. So you know you started off as a single site, and obviously you've explained how you've then grown the estate, if you like, over the years. But you know, take us back to that first site that you had, Tony, and kind of what were some of the challenges that you had there, and what are some of the good decisions that you might have taken?
Yeah, there's been various bumps in the road that have led to an opportunity. You know, and the millions of viewers of this podcast, I should tell them, you know, that there are moments when you fall down and you think, oh, this is it, you know, oh shit, that's it. But believe it or not, that tends to lead to the next opportunity. Right. Oddly. Right. For me, it did. You know, I had a little bump. Another door opened up because it just gives you that moment. You know, way back 96, I was always maybe creative, passionate. I think those two elements, hardworking, probably. You know, we worked hard. We maybe don't realise now, when I bump into people now, maybe they don't realise that I used to be on the pans daily. You know, working hard in the restaurant in Vittoria. Mum and Dad were still involved. I had got married, the children were small, 91, 94, they were born. But 96, we sort of did our first reasonable capital investment and expenditure, and that really took off. The trajectory started to move up of that business. So good decision making led to more opportunity. And that all maybe came to a head in November of 2001, where it was a Tuesday afternoon. I wasn't there. I was picking up the kids from school. I got a phone call from the manager. There had been a fire up the stairs in a flat that we also own. And of course, the fire brigade had been called out. The restaurant was evacuated. There was no fire in the restaurant, but the amount of water and debris that came down through the floors, these are old buildings, old tenement buildings, we went from we'll be open tomorrow night to we don't think we'll be open for a while. So at that dark moment, it was like, oh, it was the end of the world. I just moved house. I only had one restaurant, one main income stream, and it was like the end of the world. But what was unusual about that in 2001 was I had already bought the other corner as an investment, the old Bank of Scotland, which became the Kennel Club for a short period. I owned that, and I had tenants in there. And when we were rebuilding Vittoria in 2001, one of the ventilation guys who were working on the site, he's up in the ceiling void, he said to me, did you know that next door was connected wall to wall with your site? Now it seems very normal, but back then, the restaurant was facing here, it had a toilet block to the rear. That was another corner, there was a chip shop, so it didn't.
Yeah.
My dad sort of said, oh no, it must be, but nobody knew really. But it was only when those guys went into the void of the ceiling and must have saw lights on and said, your wall connects to these guys next door. Well, to tell you that, we were quickly over that, get the tenant out, because we thought we struck oil. Because the Vittoria was a busy site, but it was always had too much demand for the occupancy we had. There was no chance of getting a table at weekends. So that was that moment. That fire led to me discovering that next door.
You'd never have known that.
No, we had bought it to sort of protect the site here, so we didn't lose another corner. We like corner sites.
Yes.
And that moment, that fire, I remember the fire. I remember the next day what I did. My head went down a bit. I thought, oh shit, what's happened now? Will the insurance pay? There's always a little unknown period. Will I get paid? Do I have to fund it myself? How much is it going to cost? It was a bump in the road. Mm-hmm. But that led to us discovering that next door was connected. Mm-hmm. And within 2 years, we had opened the big Vittoria, which this month is 20 years old. And I would say that just took us to another level because we trebled the turnover of that corner. It just went through the roof. It was a good time, early 2000s. I think then in Edinburgh, the financial world of your Bank of Scotland, Standard Life, Royal Bank were chucking loads of cash. So business and people had job security. It was a good time. It was before the 2008 crash. That was a great time. And I enjoyed that time. That was my first, when I started to upgrade, I had better holidays, I had a better car. They were good times. I remember that, and in the middle, we were doing some investments of other assets around town, but that site was delivering. It was really brilliant. It was really good. We started picking up awards. That's what put us on the road to where we are today. That fire was the first moment. Yeah. And then within a couple of years, over another opportunity, which was a quick deal, I ended up buying the old Caprice restaurant in Leith Walk. And again, that was an opportunity that presented itself in a very casual way. I just said to the guy, sell it to me. That was on a Tuesday. By the Saturday morning, we had shook hands.
And is that the one that's now Antoinetta?
Correct, yeah. Right. Which was known as Favorita, La Favorita. And we've just rebranded, the boys have rebranded it to Antonietta. Post Trams, we hope, will be successful. Mm-hmm. That's another podcast altogether. Mm-hmm. The Trams and Tony Crolla. Mm. Yeah, but so these are moments I remember. That opportunity, that fire, was a black day, but it turned into when the sun shone. Yeah. And Favorita, then within 2 years, we had bought another restaurant. Yeah. In Leith Walk, which did very well. That was a multi-award-winning place for wood-fired pizza. We sort of nailed the very first proper wood-fired pizzeria in town. And I remember we won awards in London, UK, European. Favorita was ahead of its time. Yeah. It had 2 big wood-fired ovens. Yeah. It did things that nowadays are pretty normal in the pizza world. Mm-hmm. It was very innovative because I was always a bit creative. Mm-hmm. Just take a wee bit of chance, The boys were always supportive. My wife, said, let's do it a wee bit different. No one's done that. We should do it.
And Tony, out of interest, what made you kind of buy another restaurant so close to the one that you had, as opposed to going somewhere else? What was your Because you've said a couple of things. You've done that, but you also said you quite like corner sites as well. So what's behind?
Well, is it protection? There's a bit of that. It's easier to run because it's nearby.
Yeah.
Market share, so it's better we own it than somebody else. It's easier to manage. It's more local. We have local knowledge. These things are all linked. The opportunity arises on the doorstep. You know, that's been why. You know, we have 3 restaurants in Leith Walk and 3 in the Old Town, all pretty near each other. They're easier to run that way. It comes with its problems. I get often asked, you know, which is your favourite restaurant that you own? I say, well, that's like asking somebody who's got 4 kids, who's your favourite child? And just like a family, you know, there are days where they're darlings, and there are days where they give me a hard time. And businesses can be like that, you know. Some of them require attention, a lot of attention, and sometimes they just don't bother me at all. They're just great. And businesses are like that. And we are very paternal to them. You know, we care, we run them, try and run them well, long term, marathon focus. It's not quite bucking out. You know, the boys are curating them now. You know, they've just done Antonietta, they did Divino last year. They're looking at Brunswick Street now to redevelop. You know, it's money back in a lot of the time. It's not a lifestyle business. You know, it's not like that. But that opportunity, the fire, the opportunity led to the big Vittoria, to Favorita. And, you know, they were good times. That was the early 2000s. We did very well. And then, again, another opportunity, George of Forth Bridge arose. I could tell you the whole story if you want me to today. That came, I was taken there for dinner. First time in George of Forth Bridge, it was a steakhouse, an empty steakhouse. And I thought, how odd. This place is in the middle of town. It looks big. 2 floors of restaurant space, but it was empty. And I dined there, I think, after that first initial dinner, I dined there about half a dozen times in a fortnight. Because I couldn't get my head round it. I thought, this place is in the city centre. And I remember asking my father, I says, I don't know why that place is so quiet. It doesn't make sense. This place will close down soon. And I decided there and then we need to buy this place, of which we did. Within a year, we owned it. And I remember someone telling me, he said, yeah, but the Royal Infirmary's closed down. That area's finished. The hospital's closed. I said, and I remember saying to the chap, I said, that's if you're looking that direction. But if you look over there, there's the castle. And that's not closing down anytime soon. You know? And I remember that chat. He said to me, he said, you know, the hospital's closing down. Maybe that's not a good area. It'll be years before it gets regenerated. I remember saying that to him. Yeah, but behind us is the castle. He goes, I'm sure that's not moving soon. And that place has been great. We've spent a lot of money on it, done it right. The boys run a good business. They're efficient when it's time to be efficient, because the restaurant business is a feast or a famine. You know, you've got to do it when it's time, because there are gaps in the week, in the months where there's nothing much happening. There are windows of opportunity.
And obviously during the festival, it's just bumper time for you in those high street locations.
Yeah, the festival, I mean, remember, let's not forget, the festival is normally 4 weekends, 24 days. The festival doesn't run for 6 months. There's a bit of a build-up, but the winter's a long time. You've got to have regulars, a pipeline of customers who are coming constantly. The festival is the icing on the cake. But a lot of people are not organised for the festival. So they have a crazy festival, you know, they're not. But over the years, me and my sons, we've become very strategic, almost military, where we plan what can we visualise the festival and that busy Saturday night when you're running out of glasses and cutlery, and there's not enough credit card machines and not enough uniforms, and the bin man hasn't given. So we've become good at planning in advance all these little things, so when the festival starts, it's a breeze. You've got to be match fit to go to the festival and do it properly, because if not, it's a very stressful 3 weeks, because you're getting bombarded. I see them, the local places, you know, they almost hate it by the 3rd week. You know, it's like, oh, it's had enough. I'll be glad when I get, no, This puts a lot of money into the Edinburgh economy. It trickles down through us, for every cab driver, everything brings fresh cash into Edinburgh. It's a good thing. Shouldn't not like it, because if it goes, things will change. Things will change, you know?
I'd love to understand a little bit about the conversation you mentioned about the keys being handed over to you from your father to kind of take over. What was that conversation like? Was it, I think, in family business, we had Struan on talking about family business and the kind of the wins and the losses, but can you just share a little bit about like that moment? Like what was the transition like and how did it all happen?
Yeah, it was an afternoon when he gave me the keys, but it was a given. Yeah, I think my father trusted me, and trust is critical. He trusted me to go. I didn't just turn up. I'd been working in that business for a while. He probably thought, if Tony takes over, he gets my teeth into it, and we'll keep going. He had security that I would take over. But not all fathers are like that. Not all fathers are the same. There are some where they covet everything, their children. In family businesses, you have the scenario where father has to change the light bulbs as well. He knows the passwords to everything. Nobody knows nothing. The patriarch knows everything. There are lots of family businesses like that. Does it lead to then the family being disinterested, or it brings them up incorrectly, where then they're thrust upon all this responsibility very short term? It's almost on an occurrence of a death, or they just give up. Or when the shit has hit the fan and the place is doing nothing, that's when you get the keys, where it's its lowest point. A good time to, I think, to anybody listening is you don't have to give it, you're allowing them in more into your business. So they're almost playing with your ball, but you still own the ball. It just takes time. Succession is a thing that slowly should happen, where you're in control, because nothing and then everything is a bad thing. Not having money and then having money is not a good thing. It's got to be slowly you come into it. But the children who go into any business, probably like a non-family, a management team, don't just trot up. They've been in the business a while, they're lieutenants of the owner, and when there's a management buyout, that's the same thing. There's transition over. So my father had the foresight to say, that year, I remember it was 1993, my sister had just got married, and he said, you take over now. That was it. But there wasn't much to do. I was there every day anyway. I think I opened a bank account in me and my wife's name, and that was it, and started paying the suppliers, and that was that. I didn't have to pay him for the business. He gave me the business, And the same with my sons, it's just transition.
And Tony, some of the lessons as well, I know we've spoken before about some of the lessons in those early stages around, when you were a one-site owner and it was your own source of income, and some of the changes that happened or incidents that happened at that early stage that then also propelled you on. You don't have an injury of some sort at one point.
There was my action coach moment.
Is that what you call it?
Because that's what it led to. That was another dark day. I'd stepped on an empty beer bottle across the road in Leith Walk, and I don't know what it did. I remember the crack in my back. It just went like, something's not right. So I sat in my chair in my office, and a couple of hours later, I was like, this is feeling shitty. But that led on over a period of a few weeks where I couldn't drive. I could hardly walk. It was aching. It had been diagnosed as a double hernia in my back. And the chap at the hospital said, we can operate on it, but these are the kind of ops that at that time, this is early 2000s, I just opened Favorita, so it was 2005. And I had this sore back, and it was killing. I remember a customer of mine who just passed away recently, lovely man, he had to take me home one afternoon because I was in such pain. I kept working, had the injury, I just couldn't take time off. I had to be there all the time. And so I decided to have some time off, stay at home. But what happened then was, because I did everything in the business, I used to do phone in all the orders, phone the butcher, the veg guy, the brewery, for supplies, pay the bills, do everything. So I had to do it from home. And I remember there was a night when my wife would come home with these lists, these shopping lists, and I couldn't go to sleep. I was knackered and I couldn't go to sleep because I had to phone in the orders. And maybe that was that light bulb moment where I thought, this can't be the only way. There must be a better way. How do the big boys run big business? And that's been that curiosity I've always had. How do they do it? So that looking over the garden wall is important. You have to have a bit of nosiness in your life where you say, if they can do it, so can I. You don't need to invent nothing. And as chance would have it, a regular of ours was one of the action coaches, a lovely guy called Enrico, who's still around, lives not far from here.
Right.
I think it's Montgomery Street, I think he lives here.
Right.
Nice guy, yeah. And he said that he was doing this thing. And of course, back in the real world, when you tell someone, well, you've got a coach, is because it was like a therapist. You know, there's something wrong with you. But the first thing they always explained, in that world of business management, learning, it's training, it's mentoring, it's advisory, it's not coaching because there's something wrong with you. It's because you want to do better. So I subscribed because I had the time to do this coaching. He'd come to my house because I was stuck at home for a few weeks. And I learned how to use Excel. He showed me how to use that. And it was always in my head, but systems, checklists, systems, all that information to put it down in writing. Back then it was all in paper format. Software, internet hadn't really exploded in hospitality. But that's when we started to implement more systems where, I would give responsibility, but I still had oversight if I wanted to check, which is what management is about. It's letting the good people in your organization get on with it. But if you want to check, it's there. It's no good. I don't think there's any business owner that says, I don't have the knowledge to find out what's going on right now. You have to be. You have to know. If you have got a doubt in your mind, you want to be able to know how many pizzas you've sold, how much does that cost, what do we pay him, what do we do with her? You've got to know, the business owner, but he doesn't need to know all the time. He just needs to know it's there. And that whole action coach period at that time, that's what really I locked into. I says, what's in my mind does exist. I just have to implement it. And action came from implementing. Before long, we had fax machines, forms, order forms, suppliers. It was all about, what's going on? There was resistance. Even the staff were like, do we have to do this? I said, no, you have to do it. It's non-negotiable. And before long, it was running like clockwork. It was just great. And I had data to my fingers. I've been good at that over the years. And, knowing my customers, average spend, return visits, return on investment, all that sort of stuff. A lot of business owners don't know that, so cannot make decisions if you don't know. Why is that? I don't know. But that moment, that was 2005. My back got better. I'd lost a bit of weight because I was a lot heavier than what I am now. Back then, that didn't help. So that was another moment, that bad moment, opportunity. Within 18 months, I bought Georgieville Bridge. Had you asked me in 2005, you can open another restaurant in your life, I would say, like a hole in the head, I need another one. There'd be no chance because there was no capacity. I've only got 10 fingers. There was only so much time in the day. I couldn't relax. So you start to hate your business. And I was a bit like that. But that released another bout of energy and propelled me to the city centre, of which we never looked back because that was a roaring success. But because of systems in the business, I was able to see everything because I knew I could not be in every place at the same time. It was not possible. If I'm at Vittoria on the Bridge, I couldn't be in Leith Walk. Lucky enough, my boys were there, my wife Angela, they were eyes and ears everywhere. But the data that I was receiving at the time was ahead of its time. Was ahead of its time. We knew everything that was going. Things that are now normal, we knew 15, 18 years ago. that kind of stuff. That was another moment.
And so how do you keep on, almost being at the forefront? You mentioned obviously La Favorita being, in terms of what you were doing with the pizzas were before its time really, the kind of the data that you had that was better than kind of the hospitality industry. How do you constantly keep evolving and keep at the forefront of your industry?
It's what we enjoy. I think that's what it is. I mean, I was with my sons on Wednesday a couple of days ago, and we said, what is it that keeps us going? Well, we're passionate for business. It's a professional sport to us. Yeah. It's a hobby, that we've turned into a fabulous business, and we enjoy going to work. We're at our element. Yeah? Yeah. As much as, we like to have a good time and have trips and go on holiday and that, but we're almost out of our comfort zone when we do that. It's not us. We enjoy the game of being in business. We get excited about the next deal. We're a bit of adrenaline junkies on that. We like I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people in hospitality, that those kind of people who tend to run those kind of businesses. They don't look too much at the risk, look at more the upside than the downside. Remember, it's an investment you're making. People who go to the casino, well, the odds of success are probably better in a casino than they are in opening a restaurant. You're going to spend all that money planning, M&E, build a place, then the marketing, assemble the team. There's a lot of cash being laid out before you've served one customer. It's a very high startup cost, hospitality. And nowadays, people expect them to be beautiful. Yeah. You've seen a lot of new restaurants opening the last few years in town. But sometimes I learned from a while back, it was a great analogy. Someone said, you never see a crowd of people on a street corner. And you ask them, what are you doing here? They say, we're waiting for somebody to open a hotel. Or we're waiting for somebody to open a cinema or a restaurant. We need to build it, they will come. And there is calculated risk. But if you do the right things, the odds of success are far greater. A lot of people dwell. They dwell too much. They talk themselves out of it. They ask the wrong people. A lot of people I know will ask a family member about doing something because it's a family member. There's an element of trust. But it's always good to ask somebody who's done it, made the mistakes, made it. And that's why business mentoring, advice, is a great thing. It shouldn't even cost a lot if you don't have to pay for it. There's always somebody that's got. And I think a lot of business people are happy to talk about their story because it gives them a better feeling. It says, because there's always a nervousness. That, what do they call it, imposter syndrome nowadays? Where you think, oh shit, is it all going to go wrong? I'm just on a roller coaster, it's just going to go off a cliff. So it re-emphasises what you've done. Well, did all right. We made a few mistakes, but everything's cool.
And along with the mistakes, there's also been some upsides. I think you've mentioned a story before with Divino. You got a bit of a lucky break with Divino, didn't you?
Divino was another one, There are all opportunities. Divino is another one, When I bought that building on Georgeville Bridge, we had a tiny basement at the very ground floor. And a funny story. I mean, it was there, obviously. I just didn't check because nobody bothered checking. It was just, the building was that big. Georgeville Bridge is 16,000 square feet. It's a huge building. It's on 4 floors. So the very bottom one, no one needed it. Just didn't need it. So it was this tiny wine store we had with this dark area to the right. And I didn't want to go down there because I was imagining there was probably huge rats roaming around. There'd be a colony down there. I knew there was a hole in the wall. So I asked my electrician at the time, I said, go down there and maybe string up some electricity and put some lights on. I just need to see what's there, just in case there is something going on down there, No one had ever been there. And lo and behold, when they came back up the stairs a couple hours later, there's like another building down there. There's more rooms. So, I read that the same day, I went to my lawyers just to make sure that was on my title, that piece of ground, and it was, obviously. And before you think, we've got to open something. Of course, you just go for it then, So we need to open another restaurant. which we did.
And that's where Divino came from then, is it? Just
When we bought that building, it was probably a quarter of the size that what it actually is just now.
Yeah.
It was because no one had really checked.
Yeah.
And the previous landlord didn't need it, so it was just a dark room. You know, so we technically got that asset for free.
Yeah.
We didn't imagine paying for it.
And how quickly after discovering that you had such a kind of a lucrative or potentially lucrative spot there did you open?
Maybe a year, 15 months. Oh, right, straight in. Yeah, but you know, it's all systems go. You know, it's just a team, and to get things done, you need a team. And in my game, you need the architect you call, the funder you call, the QS you call, the shop fitter you call, the designer you call. It's the squad, the licensing lawyer. It's the usual people who off and on in a 20-odd year career, 25 years, you've used them periodically when there's a game on.
And what do you refer to them as?
Well, it's Team Tony.
Yeah.
It's Team Tony, yeah. They know they're part of Team Tony. It's a given I'm going to call them. They look after me, I look after them. You know, we get things done. But I like to have the jaggy chats before we do anything. So I'm methodical in planning and preparation, and that way it's just job done, open. I don't do things a bit half-arsed, and experience has taught me that, you know, just do things right first of all the risk, think about it, walk the site again, keep walking it again, de-risk as much as you can in your mind. Ask as many questions as you can. Too many people start a job and then it's like, oh, where do we put the bar and where do we get the water from, and have you got enough electricity, and the cost overrun, and then could you add that? No, we build it in our heads, then put it in writing, then get it costed, then execute. And that's the correct way to do it. That way there's no confrontation. You know, when people are expected to be paid, it's like, but that shouldn't happen.
And so looking at again your estate, then you went on to kind of, I think from there to do Bertie's, which was presumably must have been one of your biggest projects.
Yeah, well, it has the biggest.
And also a departure from the traditional Italian.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, we bought that site. We were lucky enough that we knew the landlords very well. It was the Cushies building. Mm-hmm. They had a fire in 2008. 2-3 years later, by the time the dust had settled, literally, and they rebuilt the roof back on the building, they decided to exit that investment. So I bought it. I think the initial play was to be the landlord there and find a tenant. I had a big pub chain, national pub chain, who were very interested. They maybe spent a year, 15 months trying to get planning to turn it into a big super pub venue. I could taste the rent. I could taste it. You know, I thought, don't worry, it'll come. But it didn't. And then I had another crowd who were looking to turn it into 20 serviced apartments. Again, you know, you're thinking, oh, this will be great. I'll just get the income stream. Yeah. But there was a lot of downside for me. I'd have to make the whole initial investment into a world that I wasn't familiar with. Yeah, where I'd have to do the whole fit out. It just wasn't a deal for me. And I had somebody wanting to buy it. And luckily enough, Alberto, my son, he walked into the conversation, and I'm always transparent with my boys. I don't, you know, I like to introduce who I'm talking to, sitting on the meeting. Yeah. They know everything, what's discussed. And he heard the conversation. This chap was going to pay me a big premium over what I'd paid for it. So, you know, I get all my money back, plus a bit. And it was Alberto who said, probably his brother had planted the seed in his head. Alberto said, Dad, why don't we just open it? Because if you just sell it, what are you going to do the day after? You're going to look to redeploy the funds into another asset. And what, you're going to go look for an asset that big in the city centre? You won't find one. Not at that price. So it was Alberto who said, and I said, boys, what are you saying? Well, let's open another restaurant ourselves. Yeah. And I had never thought we'd open another place. Me. Yeah. But the boys were up for it. Yeah. They said, are you sure? We'll do it. Yep. we'll run it. And they had the concept of fish and chips.
Right.
We have fish and chips in our blood because I worked in a chip shop when I was young. My father had one, which my sister now runs. My in-laws were great chipper people in Edinburgh. And my wife grew up in fish and chips. So we knew the game. We like a fish supper as well. So we knew the business. It wasn't like something new. It was just another form of hospitality. Yeah. And so the boys executed that. I put the deal together to refurbish it all. And it's been great. Bertie's has just been fabulous. So we're in that space now, It's just great. And it's a nice thing to do. Yeah. It's good fun.
It's a good sign. And of course, as you go up the stairs in Bertie's, of course, you've got almost the cartoon strip of the family and all of the Edinburgh.
That's right. That was
iconic.
That was a nod back to sort of fish and chips when they're wrapped in newspaper.
Yeah.
That tied that in because the boys didn't want to open a seafood restaurant doing fish and chips. It was not going to be posh. They wanted to do mainstream, a fish and chip shop restaurant. A restaurant that does fish and chips, a casual restaurant, which there aren't many, but they've pulled it off. They've done a great job. Yeah. And they've done a really good, because then of course COVID came, and we'll get on to that, but that was like Armageddon for anybody in hospitality. But since then they've recovered and they've done a great job.
Well, go on, Tony, just because there are two things there. There's obviously the COVID impact on the hospitality industry, and also you did mention it, so we potentially can go there. Trams as well. So half of your estate is on Leith Walk in that area. So there's been kind of some two big things going on.
Yeah. Well, the Trams have been going for a decade because I think it was the mid-2000s they did the first gig. And remember, Leith Walk was torn up. Yeah. And then they ran out of money and then they closed it all up again. Yeah. We took the hit then. It's been difficult. Yeah. I think the pandemic distracted us from the whole tram project. Yeah. But us, and I can see it, lots of businesses in Leith Walk, they are battle-worn. Yeah. We're tired. And I know now we're at the last corner, we're about to turn that. The trams are running up and down Leith Walk today on testing, which is very exciting. I've become a wee bit pessimistic about the whole thing. Will it add any value to us? Because primarily I'm responsible for that. I don't know what it will do to the society and the planet, but how will it help us? That's what I'm interested in. That's my primary job, is that. I don't know, there's a lot of parking being taken away. Loading bays, there's very few of them. And I've had chats with the councillors, if they listen to this podcast, on the record, they've not enough loading bays in the street. And I always tell them, says, guys, but back in the real world, the Amazon guy, the trade waste collector, the family with children in the car, they need to offset people onto the pavement. Taxi drivers taking off elderly or disabled people. Our suppliers want to be able to drop off goods as close as possible to our front door because time in delay costs somebody somewhere. It always ends up costing the consumer. If our suppliers are doing less drops per day in Edinburgh, they need more manpower or more vans with less goods because it's taking longer. Ultimately, it costs more money to somebody, which tends to be the consumer, which in our case is the Edinburgh customer. They will pay for it again, the tram.
Yeah.
Because it is now, not everybody's using a car. There are lots of people who walk. I take the bus sometimes because I just can't get parked anymore. The bus service in Edinburgh is great, and I really hope, I am forward thinking that this will be revolutionary, that in 3 years' time we're going, it was the best thing since sliced bread. It transformed. Yeah. But I asked people who have got businesses in the West End, where there's been a tram for a few years now, and they say it's shit. They say it's shit. There are toilet boards. You never saw toilet boards in the past in that part of the world. I don't know. I really, really, really hope it's successful.
Yes.
That it's packed. And it brings people down Leith Walk and it helps people move around better, quicker. businesses grow, the economy grows, because, if I buy less, my employees work less and earn less, my suppliers sell less, so they make less, and we're all linked. The public sector is funded by us, by businesses, the private sector. If that contracts anymore, there's no public sector left. It's all based on debt. I don't know, but we are, as you can hear from me, we are battle worn. We're at the very end now. I've seen the footfall in Leithwalk from the good old days collapse. Even post-pandemic, it feels like it's still locked down. I walk down the street on a Tuesday normally I tend to have a meeting in town, then come down, and I look around, and there are shops that in the old days used to be open at 9, 10 a.m, shutters up, they're open for business. There's not many shops open, there's not many shops at all. There's a lot of little takeaways and coffee shops and pubs, but there's no stores or somewhere to buy something. My wife always jokes, if I had £100 at the top of Leithwalk and walked down Leithwalk, I'd probably have £95 at the bottom of the street.
Right.
There's nothing to spend it on. It's not a Stockbridge, it's not Morningside, it's not even Corstorphine, it's not even Roseburn. But Leithwalk's a beautiful street. It leads from the St James Quarter, which is stunning, to the port. And I think the council should really push the port. We've got a harbour not far away. People travel miles to go up Fife to see the sea and the harbour and walk around. Well, we've got one just at the bottom of Leithwalk. You can take a tram to you need to really promote the shore, because that would create that city-wide. The festival as well could do with a little bit of spreading out rather than so congested in town. But that might happen, because good transport is what builds great cities. So hopefully we'll be laughing, or my boys will be laughing. It's past my time now. I'll use them. I'll get them for free in a few years' time as well. I'll get them in a decade to go. So that's my Trams story.
I'm interested in your kind of view on people, because obviously, to grow from a single outlet to multiple site operator as you are now, you employ a lot of people around Edinburgh as well. So what's your kind of messages around, for business owners listening in here, what's your angle on how you grow and engage people?
Yeah, at my peak, I employed 300 people, just over 300. I think it was 308 was the highest we got to one summer. Luckily today I don't employ anybody. Myself, I have nobody to pay for it. Everybody's external for me and my side of the business. My sons, I think at the moment, have 240 on the books, and it's starting to grow again as we lead towards the summer. So it's still a big chunky crowd. The business is the people, because if you take them away, nothing can happen. You cannot open tomorrow. You cannot trade without people. And you cannot trade well without great people. And that's the trick, is to find great people. And we have been very lucky. We have people who have worked for us for years, who I'm very thankful to, because we would not be where we are without them. It's fundamental to have good people and bring them on. And I always feel happier when I hear they've went on a good holiday and they've bought a better house and they're driving a better car, and they're getting the benefits of a good life, because their families benefit too. It's vital. You cannot be the only king in town. You need a population that's wealthy as well. That's the structure, has to be like that. And we've got a good squad. A lot of the noise goes on that little churn of folk who come and go. And that's always going to happen. I tell my sons, our business has never been easy, and it never will be easy. Business per se is a challenge every day. And the people can be challenging, but it's always a minority. There's always a noisy chef, or a noisy waiter, or a noisy contractor or supplier. But you just have to deal with it. For the best for everybody, but for the business fundamentally, because that's who we are responsible for in this role. As the shareholders of the business, the directors need to run it for the benefit of those shareholders, to increase shareholder value. That's what has to stay front and centre. you don't take casualties with you, but you need to make the jaggy decisions. You know, some people can, you know, your bullshitometer has to be on all the time. You do hear a lot of crap sometimes from people. You think, he's just telling me rubbish, you know, and you have to know that. There are, I don't know if bad people come into your life deliberately, but there are people who are, you know, there's something missing, or they're delusional, or they just talk rubbish, you know, and occasionally they do come into your life. And sometimes I've had them in my life, you know. They've cost me money as well. At the time, it was like, oh, God. But as time marches on, you almost want to thank them for coming into your life, because, it's a learning. It's a great university to go to, the University of Real Life, and real mistakes, and understanding that some people talk rubbish. You know, they don't even know they're talking rubbish. They're just, that's what they think.
Have you got an example, Tony, of like a mistake or a real lesson learned off the back of a situation? I mean, that you could share just to bring it to life. Put you on the spot now.
An example. I need to watch what I say.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything. There are a few characters that, you know, they probably meant well.
Yeah.
But as Christ said to the people when he was being crucified, little do they know they are wrong, I think it was, you know. Some people don't know they're wrong. They just think they're doing something right. We think they're wrong, but in their mind they're right. And in the business career, you do bump into the odd person or company or supplier or member of staff that you just say, oh no, it's the end of the world. Because there's risk, capital risk, you know, financial risk, compliance, safety. You know, you have an accident, you could hurt somebody, they could hurt themselves. You know, you've got that risk all the time. You know, the phone can ring any moment now. There could be a fire or an accident or an incident, you know, or something, an oversight in the business, a legal oversight that's exposed us to something. That's always there. And the more games you play, the more chance of defeat, yeah? Real Madrid are the greatest, but they've taken heavy defeats in the past.
Yeah.
But you learn from them and you move on. You always have a defeat sometimes, but when you play lots of games, you just hope that you win most of them.
Tell me this then, because it's too risky to ask for examples of mistakes. What about successes or kind of examples where, you know, in all the kind of customers that you must have served, like just a funny kind of story about a situation with a customer, or an amazing service by one of the...
I need to get the zone of it to remember. There's probably thousands.
Yeah.
There will be thousands. I've seen them all. Remember, we're in Leith Walk, so we've seen all characters, you know. You know, there was some... I've got a photograph on my phone of somebody peeing in the street, you know, bare-arsed. In front of a restaurant the other day. You know, this is the gentrification of Leith Walk. You know, that still happens. You know, we've had bam pots, we've had people not paying bills. I think at the current moment, I can't remember a specific one, but we've seen it all. We've seen it all. You know, we've been in business such a long time. And those characters, I don't see as many of them now. Leith Walk was a bit different than in the past. It was, you know, fight in a pint and get your fight first kind of area, you know. It was like that, you know, there was some football supporters at the weekend, a lot of drunk people when the pubs came out. That element, they're either in jail or they've died, they've all gone, you know, but we had people who used to come into the restaurants, fall asleep at the table, you know, start arguing with their wives in the restaurant, you know, that's happened to us before. You know, I've had customers they're in with their girlfriend and their wife's parking across the road, and I get them out the back door. That's happened to me twice, both in the same restaurant, which is odd. So even our Vittoria's was a place to take somebody else's wife. It had a corner of that market. That happened to me twice. That, you know, the team was out. That is your wife across the road. She's coming in. You know.
Oh my Lord.
You know, because they would use it as well. You know, that's happened. I've had some great customers. I think a lot of Edinburgh people have been in our restaurants. Because when I go out and about, It's a great thing to meet people who, at the airport or the train station or in the street, you know, they'll remember a birthday or a party or back in a different career they used to come in, you know, and that's a nice thing, you know, to say people have supported us. They were my father's customers, then they were mine, and now they're my sons. I think that's a lovely thing, that.
Part of this.
Oh, it's just a great thing. You know, that's worth a lot to us. You know, so God, you know, your father, your grandfather, your son were customers of mine. And we looked after you. 3 generations have looked after you. I think we love that a lot.
Yeah.
There's a human side of a family still at the coalface, still very visible.
Yeah.
You know, how long will that continue? I think the boys are going to be in it for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So a Vittoria Group per se will keep going. And new opportunities will come up. You know, we don't know if we'll stop where we are. Who's to say? I never imagined 25 years ago I'd be doing this. And your viewers who are starting out need to understand it's just down to your ambition. And a bit of luck, yeah. But seize that opportunity, talk to people. Anything is possible. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And my boys now are on their journey. And you know, and it's tough. As a father, I do reflect. They'll probably watch this and think, oh, shit, what did you say? But you know, as a father, I do think, you know, you give them a lot of responsibility. It's hard work. You know, we created a monster. As much as they get the benefits, but you know, there are a lot of sacrifices. It can be a tough gig sometimes. You know, it's long days. Hospitality is bank holidays, working, weekends, evenings. As much as they love it, but they have to make the sacrifice. You know, it can take its toll on your health, on your relationships. I always think, you know, but it has the benefits, and you know, sometimes you just have to focus on the benefits, and they do get better. You know, the benefits get bigger and better thanks to that business if it's doing all right.
We ask all our guests as we kind of come to a close, what is your guiding principle in business?
Guiding principle in business. My guiding principle in business. Does it make money? You know, instinctively, am I passionate for it? You know, you got to enjoy what you do. I know if you ask me today, we've got a great deal, you'll make money out of this. If it doesn't toot my trumpet because I'm not passionate or I'm not interested, it's funny, I probably wouldn't do it. It's got to be something I love or understand. You know, and principles, yeah, you need to have good values, trust, respect. You need to do the homework. You need to work it out. You need to spend some time with the door closed and the phone off, because those decisions have repercussions. Yeah, so principles, communicate well. That's vital. When you're in business, you should be a good communicator. And a lot of the time, face-to-face is the best communication. There's a little bit, for my comfort, there's too much digital. You know, sometimes eyeball to eyeball, you understand the sentiment better. Yeah. Especially if it's a negotiated deal. It's amazing how quick it can be done with scraps of paper and a pen and a coffee. Yeah. Deal done. Yeah. Handshake. Well, you know, sometimes it can be a bit more longer and misunderstood when it's not done like that. I prefer a face-to-facer. So it's just the good way to do it. So I would say that's the things that are always my way of doing it.
Yeah.
Is it the best way? I don't know.
Seems to be working.
That's it.
So
thank you so much.
It's all relative, Alan. You know, when you ask, you've done well. I get asked that a lot. You've done well. Have I? What does that mean?
do you think you have?
It's all relative. It doesn't matter. Are you happy, I think, is more important. Do you sleep well at night? You don't need to be the richest man in the world, and you never will be. There's always somebody. I think happiness, health, you know, especially when you're married and have relationships, or children, you know, I think because it's amazing how perspective can change when someone's not well or happy. The business doesn't really help. You can, but the business can't. The business, okay, it keeps us all afloat. It's what you're known for, what you do. But I think your relationships are the most important. Yeah, the ones that will see you through in hard times, the COVID period. I found that it was my relationships that got me through it, because that was a difficult time. We've not talked about that, the pandemic in hospitality, but that Friday night, I remember when Boris appeared on the TV and closed our restaurants down. It was a punch in the nose. It was like, what? And we had an inkling it was coming. Of course, we read the press. We knew it was coming. There was nobody about. We almost had to close because there was no customers anyway. But being told to close down your business was tough. And, we didn't get help. We had big sites. We didn't get grants at the beginning. Got it in the second year, but not in year one. But waking up that morning knowing that all the restaurants were closed, and for how long, nobody knew. But they're a big test, but it was as much as we had to do certain things to get through it, it was the people around me that got me through it. So relationships are crucial. You need a team. Everybody needs a little team of advisors to chew the fat with, because they'll get you through it. It's fundamental. And I think that's how we got through COVID. The restaurant, once they were closed, they were shut. The staff were at home. Furlough, thank goodness, helped them out. But we did burn cash because there are certain bills you need to pay. And that was a crazy time. When I think back to 3 years ago now, that was a difficult time. But, it all feels back to normal. It all feels back to normal. We lost our father through COVID, which was a big shock to us. So what a period we've had, those 3 years were mental, So, our father is still there somewhere, so we feel that. My sister, my kids, our family, my mother, we still got mum, but the Vittoria Group keeps us busy. And business can be a great distraction as well. A nice thing to get into, and it passes the time.
Just a bit.
When I asked, when are you going to retire? Well, I always say, I don't think I will retire. I would rather die of exhaustion than die of boredom. And freedom is a great thing. The freedom to choose not to go to work or to go to work, to go on holiday or not to. That, I have that, thankfully. But business is a great antidote. It just keeps yourself alive, and I think it keeps you young. It keeps you young. I never realised when my father, almost until his last days, it was obviously COVID that stopped him coming into work because we were shut. And then he passed away not long after. He had a short illness. But up until he was 78, he'd be seen at Brunswick Street every morning. I used to, as an example to my children, he's not getting paid, so it's not financial motivation why he's coming in.
It's just part of who he is.
He just likes coming in. He used to take my niece to school and come in every morning, get the tables and chairs out. The staff used to love him being there because he used to help out, because he used to miss him when he was away. and that's how I feel. As if I went to live, I would just want to potter around as much as I want, because not having nothing to do can be very boring.
But I think you summed up nicely. Business gives you, when you become successful, you've got that almost freedom to choose how you then spend your time. And if that's going on holiday or if that's pottering.
Freedom is what you want in life. The freedom to decide, I want to go to work, I want to open another business, or I just want to stay under the beach, under the duvet. If that's what you want,
All I'll say is thank you for coming out from under the duvet today and speaking to us. It's been brilliant.
Go back.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you, Tony.
You're very welcome.
Amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.